I'm James Heaney, and this is Brief News Brief. Today's episode's gonna be a little bit adult-orientated, so if you're a child that likes the news, then stop watching. Today's not for you. Go away. Alright, now the kids are gone, we can cut loose a little bit. We told you today was going to be huge in the news. There's going to be so many confirmation hearings that they could probably slip a bad candidate in there as if it was hiding a Band-Aid in a burrito. But it turns out today we are not eating a burrito of news, we're having a shit sandwich of news. Donald Trump had his press conference today, the first one in 6 months, and all he was able to talk about to reporters was the Russian dossier that was leaked last night. It came out from BuzzFeed originally, who released a 35-page report. Then CNN was one of the only news sources that was even willing to talk about it, and just gave a 2-page brief description of what was in there, like a synopsis of it. So Trump today said all of those allegations are false. Some of those allegations was conflicts of interests, of him basically being blackmailed by Russia, and some of them got into a sexual nature. They said that when Trump was in Russia, he was at a hotel and he got a hooker, and he paid this hooker and demanded that she peed on him in a bed. Now, let me break this down really quick. You all know I'm not a Trump fan, I'm not a Trump supporter, and I know that there are some viewers out there that are, but this is a topic I am going to stand up for Trump until I am blue in the face for 2 reasons. First of all, I don't believe it's true. Donald Trump wouldn't go to Russia to get a hooker to pee on him. Because when you're in Russia, you're in an area that you don't have privacy. I mean, the Kremlin's constantly surveying its own people. And of course, Trump, who's been living underneath the eye of the press and things, has gotten used to, if he wants privacy, making sure this privacy is in a secure area, not Russia. And plus, he owns Trump hotels all over the world. If he wants a hooker to pee on him, why wouldn't he do it at one of his own hotels? Because if there is a camera in his own hotel, then he can use that footage to enjoy the hooker peeing on him again in the future for no extra charge to the hooker. And we know Trump knows how to handle money. But the other thing is let's just say he was being peed on by a hooker in a bed in Russia. Who cares? It doesn't matter to me. It should not be illegal to have a hooker pee on you. I guess you could argue whether or not hookers should be legal, and I'm not saying they should or shouldn't. I'm just saying the act of somebody peeing on you is your own business. If you enjoy it, I hope you enjoy the piss out of yourself, okay? Me personally, not into it. I don't want to get peed on, but I will fight for Donald Trump's right to be peed on whenever he wants. Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro said that he's raising the monthly minimum wage to 40,000 bolivars. Bolivars? I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's as much as $60 and as little as $12 a month, depending on Venezuela's skyrocketing exchange rate. Maduro claims it's necessary to protect jobs of the people in this time of crisis and blames the financial elite for sabotaging the current economy. Now, critics of Maduro are quick to point out that it was his regime and that of his predecessor, Hugo Chavez, that allowed Venezuela's economy to become overly dependent on oil as its chief export. Now, oil has fallen dramatically in 2016, and countries like Venezuela have been hit the hardest due to poor social infrastructure and the fact that oil accounts for about 95% of Venezuela's export revenues. When oil was near its highs, the profits were used to finance some of the government's generous social programs, which according to official figures have provided more than 1 million poor Venezuelans with homes. The lack of oil revenue has forced the government to curtail its social programs, leading to an erosion of support among its core backers. The International Monetary Fund has estimated that inflation this year in Venezuela will be approximately 1,600%. And while it's nice to tell your friends that the minimum wage bump you're getting now gives you $15 an hour to instead of $10 an hour to flip burgers at McDonald's, the bad news is you can no longer afford a Big Mac because they now cost you $64 to eat. Sunday marked the final show for SeaWorld San Diego's One Ocean Orca performance, which had been running since the 1960s. It's finally come to a close. This is on the heels of last week's death of Talikum. Talikum is more infamously known as the killer whale involved with the deaths of 3 people in the 2013 documentary Blackfish. And while Talitha may be gone, SeaWorld is still feeling the effects of the implications of raising killer whales in captivity. The theme park franchise announced last year that they're no longer going to breed killer whales in captivity after suffering tremendous public backlash from the release of that documentary, Blackfish. SeaWorld hopes to present new shows that involve less of the circus cues for killer whales and more of the aspects of the natural instinctual movements of killer whales. This is going to include underwater viewer access to expanded areas of the orca, including its sites in Orlando and San Antonio. SeaWorld has 20 orcas that are considered to be in captivity. And while whale activists insist upon their release, SeaWorld argues that killer whales that are raised in captivity have a very low survival rate once introduced back into the wild. SeaWorld insists that its attractions are meant to be both educational and entertaining, and that they only have the best interests in mind for their whales. One can only wonder how the board members would feel, the SeaWorld board members, if they were stolen at birth and raised by their captors to perform at their captors' whim and fancy, essentially being slaves bred for their enjoyment and profit. It sounds a lot like Conan the Barbarian to me, and where there's a lot of deaths in that movie too, kind of like Blackfish. And James Earl Jones is in that. And just as Conan conquered his quest for freedom, so too should the whales in captivity have the same opportunity. It's poll telling time! What's your preferred medium of music? It is streaming and or digital downloads, which makes sense. I get it, it's easier. But as my friend Joe Baggins said, his super soldier hearing can notice the difference, and he enjoys his vinyl collection. I think you got to have the right ear to really notice the difference. And just to say it, he's willing to be a test subject. But the truth is, 83% of you don't want to be a test subject for human tooth regeneration. Well, you guys are fools, because they're going to run out of regeneration juice before it gets to you. And finally, did you like Meryl Streep's Golden Globe speech? No, you didn't. But I shouldn't waste time. Let me just mention one thing. When she said that football and mixed martial arts are not the arts, she's not trying to take away from the art of fighting. She's just saying it's not the traditional sense of what the arts are. I'm not going to defend Meryl any longer. New polls. Do you prefer Lyft or Uber? And finally, not finally at all, secondly, do you think BuzzFeed is fake news? And now finally, how much would it cost someone to get you to pee on them? Just wondering for a friend. But keep in mind, if you prefer, they can be blindfolded so they don't need to see anything. All they're looking for is pee on them. How much is it going to cost?